Color schemes and harmonies. Okay, so the book basically called each of these groups of colors color harmonies over several pages. Much of the term that we use here in the studio is the idea of color schemes, because a scheme is some kind of a plan of how you're going to arrange things. So when you plan on certain colors that go well together, you're creating a scheme for your picture or your painting. But color scheme, color harmonies are kind of interchangeable for our purposes. The first of the color schemes they talked to you about was monochromatic. Mono meaning one and chroma meaning color. So that would be taking an entire picture by just using one color and all of its lights and darks. Okay, you could create tones, grays with a color. You can dull it down if you want to. But look at all of the emotion and feeling that you can still put into a picture with just value. The girl's laughing. We get that she's laughing. She's happy. She's silly. And we can tell that she has a wonderful form and shape to her face. How they've used value and gone from lights to dark still gives us a sense of information. There's a wide variety of values. Photography can do this. They can focus on just an area of colors. They can even manipulate colors in Photoshop. We know that. Down below here in the lower right, we see a pattern that's been used over and over again. And you know we're going to be probably working with some kind of pattern ourselves and values. And so here's some of the lights and darks that can happen with your color, even when you're just working with one. The tiger looks really sad, doesn't he? He looks like a sad tiger. Mostly because we're just using it blue right now. We're used to seeing our orange and black tigers, and so seeing him all blue makes him feel sad. But we can still tell it's a tiger because they've used a variety of values. Complements. We have touched on complements a little bit and how they are opposite each other on the color wheel. And when you mix them together in some percentage, you can get a duller version of one or the other, and or a super neutral, a brown, a gray brown, any two sets. They don't have to be primaries or secondaries or anything. We can talk in tertiaries. Any color that is opposite can dull it down and change it. Well, that means, hey, like in this example here, yellow, orange, and blue, violet. You could paint an entire picture using all of the values, all of the intensity dullings, the dull changes that you can make by adding them to each other. And you could put black, white inside of one of those colors together to make sort of a gray version, which is what we call a tone. Remember, values are adding white to a color or black to a color. You have tints and you have shades. But if you add both white and black, which is a gray, you're going to gray the color out. Here's some examples. Photography again. Great contrast between this rocky cutaway area and the reflecting water that's down below. Kind of a cool blue and orange combo there. Here's blue, green, and red orange done in watercolor. Hey, like we're working with ourselves. And notice how the red, orange, and the blue, green kind of merge together, and you start getting some brown areas on the house structure itself. Okay. The jersey up above, or that might be a cycler. I'm not really sure what group that goes to or what sport that is. However, many athletic sport groups and clubs use complementary colors. We know that complements excite the eye, so do sports. Might as well add them all together. So the most dominant color on this jersey is complementary colors. So you're physically excited in the eyes as well as, personally excited about the game going on. This is a horrible photograph or illustration, but it's kind of the same idea. Some people will decorate with complementary colors. This is a bit obnoxious with orange and blue. Yes. But when you mix them together, you get some neutrals. Analogous colors. These are the next door neighbors. Any 3 or 4 colors that are right next door to each other are going to work really well together. Why? Well, one of the reasons is because they share a similar parent color. For example, the ones highlighted here, yellow-green, green, and blue-green. What do they all have in common? Tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. If you said green, yeah, well, you're correct there, but you're not really on target of where I'm going. What other color does yellow, green, green, and blue-green have in common? Da, 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 da. Okay, you want to give it to you? All right, yellow. If you haven't come up with yellow, here's why. Yellow is the parent color. You need yellow and blue to make green, right? So inside of green is already yellow. And if green is inside blue-green, you've got yellow in there already too. And then yellow, obviously, is in the title of yellow-green. Duh! So the parent or common color between most next-door neighbor colors, all right, is some kind of a primary parent color. Okay, I can paint an entire picture with these 3 colors. Again, I can use black with each one of them, white with each one of them. I could dull them a little bit with their opposite. Like if I wanted yellow-green to not be so yellow-green, I could take a little bit of red-violet and simmer it down. Okay, you don't mix these colors into each other. That's a no-no. But you change each one individually in the ways that we've learned how, through value, through intensity, or graying the color out. 2 examples. This girl here looks kind of sad, but she also looks like she's on fire, girl on fire. And the reason she feels that way is the mood that's set by the colors, right? We have oranges, yellows, yellow oranges, excuse me. And then on the right-hand side, we have a nice warm quilt. And it kind of, a rainy day, I want to cozy up on in one of those guys. And it has a very calming effect because the colors are all neighboring, but there's a blue base to all of them. Blue greens, blues, blue violets, all right? They tend to be very calming colors. So analogous colors can really throw personalities and set a mood towards you. The peacock is God's original analogous color scheme on 2 legs. Crazy. Look at that. Yellow, green, green, blue, right in a row. Okay. Famous painter Georgia O'Keeffe used to do a lot of value paintings of flowers up close, capturing all the values. Many times she worked with the theme of colors. This happens to be an analogous set. This image up here in the top right was an advertisement poster for, wait for it, a blues festival. Get it? There's lots of blues in the picture. Okay. Anyway, moseying on. Now, if analogous kind of like, yeah, they're too similar, I want something different, some contrasting hot versus cool colors, awesome. I have the thing for you. Split complements. All right, a split complement is any color that you choose to work with, and instead of using its complement across the color wheel, you use its next door neighbors instead. So for example, on the sample down below, we have blue-green. The person obviously wanted to use blue-green, but they did not want to work with red-orange. That's only 2 colors. They're like, oh, how limiting. I only can work with 2 colors, blah, blah, blah. Well, instead of using the complement, you can work with orange by itself, red by itself, along with the blue-green. Let that soak in for a moment. Those 2 colors, we know when we mix them together, do look really good with this. So why individually would they not look good with it as well? All right, so that means you can work with all of the lights and darks of blue, green, orange, and red. You could work with their complementary colors and kind of dull them down. I could dull red with some green. I could dull orange with some blue. All right, and I could put some grays into these colors to make them change even more. Here's some other split complement options. Here's the one we just talked about, the blue-green to the orange and to the red. Well, we could flip it around the other way. What if you really want to work with red-orange instead? We'll start with red-orange, and then instead of working with blue and green together, you work with them individually. See that? All right. Okay, moving on. This guy over here is a great example of some red, orange, blue, and green. All right. Definitely not blended, but they used it in the purest forms. All right. So you're an over-the-top kind of guy, and you want to work not with 2, not with 1, not with 3, but yes, you want to work with 4 colors because you're an overachiever. All right, so here's one way to work with 4 colors, working with double split complements. What's a double split complement, Ms. Martin? I'm so glad you asked. All right, it is 2 sets of neighbors to a set of complements. Say what? All right, say you really like blue-violet and yellow-orange. Lovely colors, but again, you want more than just 2 flavors. Cool. Well, instead of working with them, choose the violet, and then the blue, and then the yellow, and then the orange. The neighbors of a set of complements. Crazy. All right, so that means all 4 of those colors, you can make them, pardon me, lighter or darker with white or black. We can add them into each other because they're complements, right? We can dull them to themselves, dull the blue, dull the green, dull the, okay. And then we could even add grays to each of them. So all of a sudden you've like quadrupled the amount of possible flavors you could put into your painting. What would that look like? Well, let me show you. I'm so glad you asked. All right, crazy pop art picture over here. From the 1960s, there's a gentleman named Wayne Thiebaud who liked to paint food, and this was one of his earlier periods in which he was painting figures and people and models. And check out these colors: blue, green, red, and some orange. Oh my gosh. Because red and orange, if you mix them together, red-orange, right? So red and orange are neighbors to red-orange. Across the way, you have blue-green, but instead of using blue-green, they're using blue and then green individually. Okay. Now, are there other colors in the picture? Yeah, okay, just a few here and there. But for the most part, the most dominant portions, look at all the values of oranges. Okay, look at all the different values of blues. Even blues used as highlights in her hair. Okay, very comic book style. Even blues in the grays, blue grays, tones. All right, down here, a tone of blue gray in the background. We even have here some of that red piping coming through. The reds made into lighter colors for pinks, right? Anywhere you have these pink highlights and all, the red earrings, the pinky lips, the pink ice cream, all right, working with reds. So a lot of it's very dominant. It just threw up the secondary, it just threw up the double split complement color scheme. It's everywhere on this one. Okay. All right. So then you could simplify the wheel by breaking it in half. You can tape it back together. You break it in half, and you have one half of the wheel are cool colors. The other half of the wheel are warm colors. So, say you want to paint with cool colors. Cool colors are anywhere from red-violet to yellow-green on the color wheel. Violets, blue, blue-green, green, so on. Now, if you mix yellow-green with a lot of green, it's going to look cooler. If you mix it with more yellow, it's going to feel warm. Same thing happens with the red-violet. If you mix it very heavy to the red, it's going to feel warmer. If you have more violet, it's going to feel cool. So those 2 colors, notice them right here, they're in both groups. It depends on how you mix them. Okay? They're sort of the borderline. The picture on the right, very warm. But there's green in the background, Miss Martin. Yes, there is green in the background, but it's mostly some yellow greens and some dark yellow greens. Okay? So predominantly, over probably 70% of this page are oranges, yellow oranges, little hints of red oranges in there, okay, some yellow greens. It is primarily warm. Over here on the left-hand side, we see this, water's crashing up against the waves. It's a gloomy, maybe evening. But Miss Martin, there's some red in the background. Yes, and a little bit on the stones, but however, the majority of this painting is doused with greens, yellow greens, red oranges. I say red orange. We've got blue violets, and then, yeah, there might be a hint of some other color in there, but the most dominant colors that you can pull off are all of these cool ones. Your division, okay? This is what we talked about before with this girl. She was on fire before, right? Now we have some neutrals and warms, but then we have that up against some cool colors and some grays. They send feelings and moods. Cool colors just feel more calm. Warm colors feel a little bit more heated or agitated. That's just sort of their personalities. Last, we have the triadic colors. And it's interesting that I should label these last, because when we started talking about color, they were the first colors we talked about. The primary colors and the secondary colors. Remember when I put them on the board or on the wheel there, and I connected the dots between them? They made triangles, triads. They sit equally apart from each other on the color wheel. If I tap on red, then I count 1, 2, 3, 4, and all of a sudden I'm at 12 o'clock at yellow. And then I count 1, 2, 3, 4, and there I am at 4 o'clock at blue. They are equally separated or spaced apart on the color wheel. And it doesn't have to be primaries or secondary colors. Tertiary colors are separated or can be separated by equally spaced on the color wheel. Okay, so this picture here of these Bartlett pears, yes, pears can be red. I know they're not all just green. I know, crazy. This picture of pears was all done in primary colors, but you probably guessed that already. But look at all the different color changes. The background up at the top has a lot of different yellows, but they're not like yellow. They're more like, yeah, yellow. Okay, they're calm. They're more golden color, which means they probably had some of the opposite color to dull it down, right? So it's become more golden. I think they threw a little bit of white in there with it too. Look at all the blues. There's even blue grays. There's some tones of blues as well as some blues that are just darker. We also have all these reds, dark reds, light red, tints, and shades, and then we start getting some browns. The brown has had some white added to it to make it lighter, but there's some neutrals coming from some complementary color mix. Maybe it's red and green, maybe it's a little bit of a blue and an orange, and they've thrown some white in with it. But it is entirely done with values, intensities, and tones of the primary colors. Look at that. So don't feel limited by like, you only let me use 3 colors? Look at all the different variations of those 3 colors that you get. Now, there was an famous artist named Piet Mondrian, and Piet, back in the 1930s and 40s, was very into, later in his life, the idea of only using red, yellow, and blue, the primaries. Since they, as you have learned already, do not mix with anything to be made, like you can't make a yellow, pure yellow, you can't make pure red or pure blue by mixing any 2 other colors together. Amazing, by the way. Because of that, he wanted to only work with those 3 colors because they were considered the most pure. And so he created patterns and repetitions and compositions with emphasis and variety of places, only working with black, white, and the primary colors. So there you go, gentlemen, our little role in colors of color schemes.